So thank you for coming to this A Rocha walk around Foxearth Meadows. Welcome, you found it, you're in the car park, and it's a lovely sunny July day. It is sunny, so if you've got sun hats, I'd recommend wearing your sun hat. You might want to think about sun cream, biting insects. I don't think it's too bad today. But if you're particularly prone, maybe spray a bit of repellent on. Underfoot, it's dry out there today, but you know, there are some sort of lumps and bumps, so just be a little bit careful. I'm not anticipating any major incidents. I've got hand sanitizer with me, so if you need some of that, just let me know. And you know, in these strange COVID times that we live in, if you can just help us all by keeping a good distance from anyone who's not in your household as we stroll around the reserve. So if anyone does need the loo, we have a wonderful composting toilet at your disposal, which might sound like a pretty unpleasant experience. Actually, it's really not. And on this virtual tour, it is especially open for you, and it will be even more wonderful than normal. So we're going to head off down this path. We're going to head off past the Foxearth sign. And now normally, if you're arriving at Foxearth, you'd head down here and you'd head off to the left. And we're not going to do that today. So we're going to carry straight on. We've got special permission to go in through the 5-bar gates. And it kind of takes us straight to a very nice corner of the reserve where there's a very nice pond. But as we're walking, I don't know if you could, it's landed now, was flying, so they don't always land this obligingly, and they can be very curious. They come quite close, but if you look carefully, I hope you can all see it. It's got a big dragonfly settled here, and we can tell it's a true dragonfly rather than a damsel fly because the wings are sticking out. That's probably the easiest way to tell them apart. So true dragonflies, when they settle, their wings are more or less at right angles to the body. If it was a damsel fly, with a few exceptions, they'd be folded along the abdomen. That's this bit here. Huge eyes that join. That's a true dragonfly feature, apart from one species in this country where they're still huge, but they don't join. And it's big and stout as well. And when they fly, I mean, as you saw when it was flying, it's a very strong flyer. Damsel flies are amazing in the air, but they're weak and fluttery. Now, so this is one of the hawkers. When they settle, they hang, as you can see this one is doing. And this is a southern hawker. And I know that two key ID features. So if you see these big headlights here on the front of the thorax, so the thorax is this middle chunk of body with the wings, with the legs attached. It's where all the muscles are for flight. And also if you go right to the tip of the abdomen, the leaves in the way, but they're sort of spots here, but they merge into bands here. And that's classic southern hawker field marks. And this is a male. Can't quite see all the appendages, but there would be 3 rather than 2, which would tell you it was a male. If it was a female, it wouldn't have the blue either. But also this constriction here, that tells me this is a male. So that's a really, really great one to start with. So let's just move on a little more. Okay, so we've now just come out onto one of the corners of the reserve, overlooking one of the 2 large ponds that we have. And we're very good at imaginative names for our ponds. This one has an island in it, so we decided we would call this one Island Pond. And a little bit of history about A Rocha. I realise not all of you will know much about the organisation. A Rocha is Portuguese for the rock. It's not an abbreviation. And A Rocha is a Christian conservation organisation. So we're basically trying to get the church to engage with caring for creation, caring for the natural world. And this reserve actually used to be owned by Keith and Maureen Morris, who were very keen A Rocha supporters. Tragically, sadly, Keith passed away prematurely. and this bench here is in his memory. And ultimately, A Rocha UK purchased the reserve, and this is the only, well, it's our only owned nature reserve. It's just over 11 acres, and we manage it primarily for dragonflies and damselflies. So hopefully we will see plenty of those today. And A Rocha isn't just in the UK. We're in around 20 countries around the world. Originally started in Portugal back in about 1983, I think it was. But let's, as we stroll around Island Pond, let's just check some of this vegetation around here. Often you'll find blue damselflies lurking in the vegetation. And when you're new to dragons and damsels, there are two main blues to get to grips with, and I'm pretty confident we will encounter both of them. So yeah, so here's one of them just settled there. And if you look carefully, can't quite see all of the marks, but this segment here, you can see half of a black mark there. You imagine that from above. Hopefully we'll find another one and get a top-down view. You can also see this mark here. Okay, so let's just keep looking. Yes, there's another one. So look down on this one, and you can see the whole of that mark, and it's like a black U. And if you remember that, because that's the middle letter of the name of this species, those stripes there are thin. You've got this U mark, if you remember that little mark on the side there, which you can't see from this angle, and a bow tie down here, that little blue or black mark on the, or almost at the tip of the abdomen. That's an Azure Damselfly, so it's one of the two blue damselfly species that you encounter a lot. They're very common here, and we'll see more, and we're quite likely to see the species that many people would mix it up with, which is called common blue damselfly. So it's a damselfly, it's blue, and it's common, it's got a good name. So let's just keep looking around the pond. Okay, so there's a bit more of Island Pond here. There's actually an otter holt on the island in here, all covered up now. I don't know that it's in use. Let's just keep walking around. Okay, yes, so here is a common blue damselfly. So superficially, looks quite a lot like the Azure, but if you remember that black mark there on Azure, doesn't have that. And remember that stripe was thin. It's a bit of a fat stripe on this beast. But this is the place to start, really. This segment, it's called segment number 2. Again, very imaginative. And that's so a really good place to start when you're trying to split them. So you can see the mark there is quite different. But again, let's find one. Yeah, here's one from above. So here on segment 2, you can see it's a bit like a mushroom or a blob on a stalk. If you remember on the Azure, it was a U, and Azure has got U in it. Common blue doesn't have blob on a stalk in it or mushroom. But that's a common blue damselfly. Thick stripes here, again, that's different. Doesn't have that extra mark, and no bow tie, just 2 plain blue segments here. But start there, start with segment 2. Okay, so let's just see, if we keep looking in the vegetation, there's 1 or 2 more. Oh yeah, so here's another of the damselflies that's common here. Again, a very obvious name really. It's called a blue-tailed damselfly. And surprise, surprise, it has a blue tail. Now there are a couple of other species here which also have blue actually further back, right at the tip, so you don't have those black segments beyond it. But again, you could mix them up, but check out the eye color. So those are, you can see dark and blue. It's blue-tailed damselfly, very common species. See them in many habitats. They're very tolerant of all sorts of water conditions. Let's just keep looking around Island Ponds. We've put in a pond dipping platform here for school parties that visit, but it also gives us a good viewing point to check out the open water and some of these logs that are in the water. May look a bit of a mess, but actually sunken or half submerged logs can be really good, useful egg laying sites. So I'm pretty sure if I scan, yeah, so there on that log, we've got a true dragonfly, and well, it's egg laying, so it's got to be a she. The best field mark on this species is these brown tinted wings. It's the only species we have with brown tinted wings, and it's called a brown hawker. Quite common. You see them egg laying here a lot. Maybe hear them rustling their wings and then see them. You also can pick out these banana coloured stripes on the side here, which you can see in flight. Often in flight, you can catch the tints on the wings as well. So they're one of the easier species to identify. But let's just keep scanning this pond. Okay, so there's another large dragonfly. This is actually one of two species which are basically the largest species we have in the UK. Again, quite different to the brown hawker. The wings are clear, no brown wash. They're a bit battered on this individual. So it's been sort of, I don't know, hitting vegetation or in a bit of a fight maybe with another emperor. It's got this apple green thorax and this wonderful, vivid blue abdomen with black on it. This is an emperor, well named. They kind of fly around like they own the place. So she's egg laying as well. So that's good. We're doing well. Let's just stroll back around the way we came. We'll keep looking over the water as we go. So back in the vegetation here, if we look closely, we've got some damsel flies. Oops, let's just look back. We'll look at those later. Let's just look at these damsel flies first. So again, you can see broad stripe there. Doesn't have that extra mark. This is a common blue damselfly, but it's two common blue damselflies, looking very romantic with this lovely heart shape. Yeah, they're mating. And dragonflies and damselflies, they're unique in the insect world. This is where it gets a bit X-rated. So the males have got two sets of genitalia. So they make the sperm at this end of the abdomen. They then transfer it, sort of bend around and transfer it to secondary genitalia here. So to mate, they grab the female and their appendages grab hold on damselflies at the front of the thorax. True dragons grab hold of the head. And then the female has to bend around to get the right contact here. Now the penis here can have whips and hooks and various devices on it, which are all about either removing sperm from any previous matings or shoving it so far in that it's of no use to the female, she can't get at it. So it's all about making sure that it's his sperm that fertilizes the eggs. But it's called being in cop or the wheel position. It doesn't always form quite as nice a heart as that. And that can be a very quick process, or it can go on for hours. But that's good to see. But if we look out over the pond, we've actually got the next stage, really. So this here, again, you've got that black mark. That's the U mark. This is an Azure Damselfly male with a female. She's egg laying. And he's staying hooked on. And he's, not all species do that, but these do. And he's guarding her, basically. He doesn't want another male to get in there and mate. Again, he wants it to be his sperm that's fertilized the eggs and his offspring that, well, a small percentage of which will make it to adulthood. It's a very small percent that actually survive from being laid as an egg. And the damselflies and the hawker dragonflies, they lay their eggs into plants, basically, plant materials, soggy logs, that sort of thing. Some of the other species, the skimmers and chasers, you'll see them flying around and the female just dips the tip of her abdomen onto the water surface and releases eggs. But that's great to see those azures there, egg laying. Okay, yeah, so just scanning over the water. So this, again, this sat on all this sort of algae, looks a little bit like the blue tail that we saw earlier, but if you remember, there was black segments beyond the blue. And look at those eyes, it's got red eyes. Now we've got two red-eyed damselfly species. One we call red-eyed damselfly, the other one we call small red-eyed damselfly. And this is a small red-eyed damselfly. We get both species here. I find the best way to tell them apart is to look here, and that blue triangle on that segment Red-eyed doesn't have that. Small red-eyed does. But let's just scan. Yeah, so there's a red-eyed. And again, you can see it's got red eyes, but if you look at the tip of the abdomen, it doesn't have that triangle there. And typically these emerge a bit earlier, but they're both around at the moment. So we've done really well there on Island Pond. What we'll do now is we'll just stroll down towards the other large pond that we have, just down through here. And where this tree is, this area around here, well, we'll get there and we'll see what we see. Oh, but goodness, before we go, on the path here right in front of us, amazing looking beast. So wings are sticking out at right angles. It's a true dragonfly. This species often settles on the ground. The wings are clear. There's no pigment around the base. That's quite helpful. And it's got green eyes, blue abdomen, powdery blue, and a black tip. This is a black-tailed skimmer. The only other skimmers we have, let me think, keeled skimmer doesn't occur here, doesn't have the black tip on the tail. So yeah, that's black-tailed skimmer. And the lack of pigment rules out the chasers, which are actually quite similar. So lack of pigment around these wing bases. Hopefully we'll see some later, so you'll be able to see what I mean. And as adults, these beasts don't live very long. So the eggs are laid, typically a year or two underwater. The eggs hatch, they turn into larvae. To grow, they molt underwater. They're fierce predators underwater. Eventually they'll climb a plant stem or something similar. They'll emerge, they'll leave that last larval skin behind, the adult pumps up and off it goes. But as an adult, well, true dragon, a couple of months, maybe a bit longer if it's particularly long-lived. Damsel fly, a couple of weeks. So fairly short, not as short as mayflies, which are the famously short adult life insects. 45 minutes is the shortest I've heard for those. Okay, so here's Big Pond, quite a different looking pond to Island Pond. No major island on this one. But oh yeah, so flying over the pond, big dragonfly. Actually, we've seen this species before. One in flight here, flying like it owns the place. So you can see the green here, and you can see lots of blue. It's an emperor. It's an emperor. And they're a common species here, but always a good one to see. And actually hovering right in front of us, they've got a different species. So it's got its sort of abdomen pointing up at an angle, and you can just about see on the side here a sort of striped pattern of pale, dark pale. There's no big headlights. The southern hawker had those. This is a migrant hawker, so another hawker species. Hard to tell in the field, but it's smaller than southern hawker. And despite its name, these days they breed here as well. There was a time when they were just migrants. And actually, if you've got a garden, maybe you see dragonflies hunting late in the evening, and especially if you see them in little swarms, it's migrant hawkers. That's what they do. Okay, let's just keep looking around the pond. Pond's looking particularly good today. We're blessed with amazing weather. Yeah, just keep scanning. So here, so settled. This one actually, well, it's staying still. So you can think of the true dragonflies as perchers and flyers. This is one of the perchers. The migrant hawker, the emperor, the southern hawker, they're flyers. You know, they're quite hard to see settled. But these beasts, they'll settle, they'll fly out, they'll come back. So you can get a pretty good view of them. It's called a four-spotted chaser. So chaser rather than skimmer. You can see the pigment here. And the 4 spots are on the wings. And it's this one, this one, this one, and this one. But you may well be thinking, hang on, there's another 4 spots. Those 2 and those 2. So they've pretty well all got dark cells there. And that's not the spots that the name refers to. These wing marks here, they're called Terra Stigma, which means wing mark, nothing very clever about it. And they're thought to help with inertia in flight. Actually, the pigment actually adds a bit of weight, believe it or not. But these spots here are on that slight kink in the leading edge of the wing. And they are, I mean, they are all fantastic flyers. So that kink beyond it, so this end of the wing, that flexes when they fly. And if you think of a bird flying, birds have got muscles in their wings, so they can use those muscles to shape the wing. Dragonflies haven't got that luxury. They've got muscles in the thorax, which are the powerhouse, but the wings are muscle-free. But they're not just flat, rigid planes. They do flex and they bend, and they're wonderfully put together to flex and bend in ways that actually help the beast in the air. They help it to fly. 4 wings, you can see the front ones are not attached to the back ones. Butterflies and moths, they are. So they can be each of those 4 wings independently of the others. They can fly forwards, backwards, sideways. They can hover. They can do amazing, amazing things. And the aerodynamics of dragonfly flight are certainly not fully understood, and they're better at flying than I reckon pretty well anything else, including the RAF. Okay. Oh, so here's another perching true dragonfly. So this looks actually quite a lot like the black-tailed skimmer that we saw settled on the path a little while ago. But if you look carefully at this one, you can see we've got pigment here again. So we're into chasers. 3 chasers in this country, 4-spotted chaser, which you've just seen, nothing like that. Broad-bodied chaser, which would have big pale stripes here and wouldn't have quite as much black down here. This is a scarce chaser. It's not so scarce these days. Now I can tell from looking at that one has mated. I can tell that just by looking, because if you see here and here, the blue pruinescence, which is a bit like that bloom you get on plums or sloes, has been rubbed off by the female's legs when they were mating. So that's a male scarce chaser, and it's mated. And as I say, they're not so scarce these days. A bit of the wrong name. Yeah, it's good. Let's keep on looking around the edges here. Okay, so another damselfly. This is an interesting species. So this is called a willow emerald, and willow emeralds are climate change colonists. I think they were first recorded in the UK, actually in Suffolk and Essex, I think, in numbers about 2007, maybe, something like that. But a bit of a different approach to the life cycle. So let's just see if we can see any more. Oh, there's a better view of a male. So you've got pale marks here, and there's the male's white appendages. Okay, so this is willow emerald. So, and oh yeah, just look further over to the right. So here we've got 2 pairs. So we've got the male here holding onto the female, male here holding onto the female. And they lay their eggs into twigs that are overhanging water, or at least hopefully they're overhanging water. And the idea is they lay the eggs, they overwinter as eggs, and then the eggs hatch in the spring. The thing that comes out of the egg initially is called a prolarva. It drops down into the water, instantly turns into a larva, grows and grows and grows. Very quick, very short period underwater for this species. So the adult emerges the same year, and then back into this part of the life cycle. But if when the eggs hatch and the prolarva drops out, if it doesn't hit water, it bounces around until it gets into water. So the job of the prolarva is to get to water. And they leave, you can see some here, these very distinctive scars where they've laid eggs. So actually, even in the winter, you can find evidence of willow emerald breeding. And they've expanded their range quite well since they first arrived in the UK. Okay, so let's just stroll on a bit. We're going to stroll back towards the river. So we looked at 2 big ponds, and we'll have a look at the river as well. But here in the grass. So earlier we saw a migrant hawker hovering. We've got a nice male here, just settled in the vegetation. You can see the field marks really well on this one. So it's very small marks here. Sometimes they're even absent. Doesn't have those big headlights that Southern Hawker's got. And if you remember on Southern Hawker, the first one we saw just after we left the car park, these spots merged down here. They're just paired all the way down the abdomen. And it's also got a little golf tee here. It's constricted there. That's one appendage under there, not two. So that's a male migrant hawker being very obliging for us. But we're going to head across the boardwalk here over towards the river. Keep your eye on the vegetation as we go through. That there will very probably be more damsel flies. And on the vegetation, or even on the boardwalk, there could be darter dragonflies, which are, again, they're another of the perches that they'll settle and allow us to get a decent look. So let's take a stroll over there. Okay, yes, so here's one of the darters on the boardwalk. So we've got two red darter species here, a common darter and ruddy darter. Given a decent view, they're not too hard to tell apart. So the standard thing that the books tell you to look for, which you can see them well enough, it is fine. Oh gosh, we'll look at that one again later. Is the legs. And if you look on the legs on here, you can see they've got a yellow stripe down a black leg. That means it's the common darter. And also this abdomen is pretty well parallel-sided. And that's not fully mature yet. It'll get redder than that, but it doesn't get as red as a ruddy darter. And yet there's, oh yes, let's look at this one first. So I just saw a ruddy darter, but we'll take a look at that in a minute. So another common darter, this is, well, it's either a female or an immature male, but just look at the eyes on that beast. So dragonflies have got the biggest eyes for body size in the animal kingdom. And these are compound eyes, so they're made up of lots of simple eyes. You can see row upon row of simple eyes there. And each of those simple eyes has got its own lens and it makes its own image. And there's a brain inside there somewhere that has to make sense of all of those images. And I cannot imagine how a dragonfly sees the world. I mean, no one can. But with a little movement of their head, they can see, behind them as well. So they can see, up, down, forwards, backwards, sideways. Very good at detecting movement. Amazing eyes. And there was a dragonfly geek in America who, I think, maybe there was nothing good on TV that night, because he took one of the big American species, very similar to the emperor that we've been looking at, and he counted the simple eyes, or facets, another name for them, on one eye, and he counted, I think I remember the figure right, 28,672 on one eye. So that's about 57,000 on two eyes, and a brain that's got to process 57,000 images to make sense of it. They reckon 80% of the brain is devoted to doing that. And whereas our eyes work with sort of 3 color sensors, dragonfly eyes can have up to 30 different color sensors. So, I mean, who knows how they see the world. You can also see on this beast some of these spines here. So when they're hunting, and these are all fierce predators, they hook their legs together to make a basket, and a lot of their aerial prey is taken in this basket, basically. And they do take some sort of just with the mandibles down here, but basically it's that basket that does a lot of the work. Fantastic view, very obliging, that one. Okay, so here's the ruddy darter. So compare that to the common darter we saw earlier. Much redder, sort of blood red. There's a constriction. This is a nice male. It's got a red face. And the legs, they're all black. There's no stripe down it. So that's common darter and ruddy darter we've seen. We're doing well. So let's just keep going along the boardwalk. Oh yes, just here in this bramble. So you may recall back on Island Pond, we saw brown hawker egg laying. Well, here's a male, got the constriction there, settled. they're not eating blackberries. Again, you know, they're all fierce predators. A big dragon, well, they'll take damsel flies sometimes, they'll take butterflies. Most of their prey is small flies, mosquitoes, midges, and no one seems to mind that too much. That's nice to see one settled as well. Okay, so here we are. Here's the river. Very different. It's the River Stour or the River Stour, depending on where you come from. One species I want to look for along here is one of my favourites. They're called banded demoiselles. They look like tropical butterflies. They've got dark pigment patches on the wings, really eye-catching. But let's just keep looking as we stroll. Not quite seeing any there. Sometimes if you look on this vegetation, you can pick them up. So let's just scan a bit. Yeah, there's a whole load there. Gosh, so I can see how many males. These are all males. 1, 2, won't count the reflections. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's at least 8 there. So it's 8 male banded demoiselles. Wonderful. Hopefully they'll be. Let's just walk along. Maybe we can get a better view of one on the bank side. Yeah, there's one. So there's a male. So depending on how the light catches them, they can look sort of greeny, bluey, metallic. This wonderful dark pigment patch. And if you look at the structure of that wing, you know, it's not flat. You can see that it's got real architecture. Amazing. And on this one, actually, you can see those spines and the leg catching basket really well as well. And you can see the eyes are separate. So damsel flies, you know, their eyes don't meet. You can see that. Okay. Keep going along the river a little way. And, oh, here's a female. So the females almost look like another species. They don't have the dark pigment here. There's basically, you know, the metallic body, and then you've got a greenish tint on the wing. But that's a female banded demoiselle. And they're pretty nice too. Occasionally people mix those up with willow emeralds. Okay, so we're pretty well done. We'll head back to a corner we call Nightingale Corner, and we'll keep looking as we go. And we'll finish there, and I'll let you wind your way back to the car park and find your way home. But let's just keep scanning as we go back along the river. Oh, wow. Goodness, that's amazing. So that is the second ever record on the reserve of this species. It's a Norfolk Hawker. Amazing, amazing. So again, the wrong name. We're in Essex. We're not in Norfolk. It's another species that's been expanding its range. They're turning up in other places as well now, clearly including Essex, including Cambridgeshire. It used to be confined just to the Broads in Norfolk and Suffolk. In continental Europe, the English name for it there is green-eyed hawker, which is, you know, it's got big green eyes. It's a much better name for it than Norfolk hawker. Bit like brown hawker, but big green eyes, no brown tint on the wings, and this yellow mark here, and this yellow or this sort of amber tinted bit of wing in here. But, you know, a big sort of ginger-coloured hawker with green eyes and clear wings. Norfolk hawker, that's fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, to leave that one, I think. So thank you very much for being here. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you would like to know more about A Rocha, you can sign up for our e-communications. If you just go to arocha.org.uk. And if you'd like to find out more about what's going on here at Foxearth, maybe even volunteer to help, you can email Andy Jowett, who's our community engagement man. His email address is there, his mobile is there. So thank you all for being here, and a big thank you as well to Albert Butcher, whose photos have really helped with this imaginary virtual online walk. Thank you.